Hello, 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 everyone, and good morning to you. Hello, hello. Welcome to day 19 of 31 Days of Halloween. How is everyone? If you guys know, I am Teresa from Teresa's Spot for Art, where I love sharing art from my heart and teaching others how to create a little joy in their life through some fun, simple, and quick art projects sometimes. So I'm going to turn you guys around and we will chat more and I will get started. Okay, I have out a piece of graphite paper and my tracer. Don't fret, I got you. It's early, people. Okay, so your tracer does line up, and I'm doing that, and I'm going to tape it together. So in the link above, you guys have this tracer that does in fact line up. I'm not crazy. And a supply list. Okay, with all the colors that I'm using. However, my supply list is just a suggestion. You don't have to use the colors that I pick. You use whatever colors you like. So I have an 11 by 14 canvas. I've taped my two pieces of my tracer together. And now I'm going to slip this piece of graphite paper up underneath. You want to put it in here shiny side down. And there you go. And I'm just going to start tracing. Now, there are people that will tell you, you use a tracer? Yep, I do. You know what? I don't draw, I paint. And when I paint, I'm going to use all the tools available to me to have success in my painting or my art. And that is just how it is. So there will be people that sometimes poo-poo tracers. They're like, oh, you use a tracer. It's cheating. No, it's not. Use a tracer. Use a stencil. Use whatever you need to have success in your art and enjoy the time for yourself. And that's what it's about. There's no art police. Nobody's going to come to your home and be like, oh, you used a tracer. That's not right. Especially these days with all this AI. You know what? If you want to use a tracer to have a little bit of success and get started on your project, a lot of times maybe we have 20 minutes to ourselves. You know what? And if I can just whip out a tracer and get some paint like I have here and start painting, so be it. So I'm going to use the tools that I am given to paint. Okay, so let me put some lines and ribs on this pumpkin too, just because it will help you. And so this is, yes, it's a tracer, but I'm not tracing in every little line, dot, accent. I'm going to show you the difference. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on this tracer. You don't need it all. Basic shapes. The large pumpkin, the smaller pumpkin, the moon, the owl, and then I just put a few leaves in there, petals rather, in there. Let me move you guys up. For my flower. Just to have place. I have out my palette. And again, you guys, you use the colors that you like, that you are comfortable with, and what works for you, or you know what, even what you have on hand. Okay, so I have out, it looks like 3 greens, but I have 2 greens, orange, yellow, brown, black and white, pretty much always, purple, and a true blue. Then I have out my usual brushes, which would be a 1-inch flat, a 1/2-inch flat, a liner brush, and a medium round brush. These are my go-to brushes. This project, we're going to use a chip brush, okay? It's a really cheap brush. It doesn't hold a lot of paint, and I'll show you why. This is not necessary, but I have it, so I will use it. I'm not giving you the numbers. Sometimes people tell you, oh, this is a number 12, or this is a number 2, or this is a number 5. This actually has a number. This is a number 10. Brush numbers mean nothing in the real world. Brush numbers are not, brush size numbers are not universal, like weights and measures. Any manufacturer can call their brush any number that they want, and so they are not uniform across the board. Whatever, I guess you guys want to see me start painting, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to come over here to my palette, and I'm going to load my brush with blue. Now I'm putting a little bit of pressure on my brush. I want my fibers to flare out a little bit. And I want to get the paint up inside the bristles. I'm not just coming over here and putting the tip in the paint. No, you want to get paint inside your bristles. You want your brush to move smoothly. We want to avoid getting paint all the way up here though, because once you get paint built up in here, your brush will start to look like this, and then you'll probably have to part with it. Okay? So try not to. It happens. Obviously, I just showed you. But we want to get paint into the bristles, but avoid the metal. Okay? And I'm just going to pick a corner, and I'm going to start painting. When I paint around my design, I go up on the chisel edge. I'm just going to paint the entire background in this true blue color. And then I'm going to add a little bit of black to the corners and the bottom. Again, when I come close to my shape, in this case, the pumpkin, I'm going to stand my brush up and we're going to paint. I am loving on you guys too. You can get the tracer and the supply list for this painting by clicking the link. And I'm just going in here. I'm even going to come in. I know my flower is going to come over here somewhere, and I'm okay with that because my flower will just go over it. This is water-based acrylic paint, and as such, if you are patient, you can fix anything. So I'm not concerned with my flower not being completely in and having to go around it. I'm just going to add my flower over my paint. I am a decorative artist that I've been painting for about 17 years. If you notice, I paint on a regular old kitchen, Lazy Susie here. I have it covered with press and seal, covered in press and seal, so it doesn't get all painty. Every once in a while, I will change the press and seal, more while and later than sooner, but I do, in fact, change it out as I do my tablecloth, because that is my table covering for my 31 days of Halloween that I have been presenting. About 17 years. Painting started as my therapy many, many years ago in an adult ed class at my local high school. A woman used to come from about an hour and a half away and teach decorative art, actually teach Donna Dewberry one stroke once a week for 2-hour classes. I was going through a little bit of a personal situation at the time, and I thought I would take a little time for myself. So it was $60. I mean, we're talking about 17 years ago. It was $60 for 6 2-hour classes. So that came to $10 a class for a 2-hour class. And at the beginning, I would just sit in the back and la-di-da. You didn't even have to buy anything. The woman bought all the brushes, all the paints, everything. As the class went on, and I ended up going to 4 sessions, but as it went on, I got my own brushes, and then I brought my own surfaces, and then we did special projects. But at the beginning, there was no investment whatsoever. You just showed up. And I showed up, and I was terrible. And I showed up again, and I was still terrible. And I showed up again, and I said, and I got the bug. The art bug hit me hard. And then I was asking questions. I was getting involved. Okay, now with the blue on my brush, I'm just going to come over here, and I'm just going to put a corner of my brush in the black. And we're going to start darkening up the edges and the corners. I put my hand on the side. I got the bug. I started asking questions. I started asking for help. I started being completely interested in learning, in blending, in practicing, in getting all the colors and the strokes down that I needed. And I loved it. And that's what happened to me. So I'm just bringing the black in my dirty brush. You don't want it black, but I'm darkening up the edges. And then I am actually going to make it really dark down here where my pumpkin is sitting. So fast forward, of course, like anything else, I lost the art bug. You get busy, you have kids, you have family, you have a job, you have obligations, whatever it is. And I didn't paint for a few years. And then in 2016, my sister, my older sister, who was more like my mother growing up, she was 14 years older than me. In 2016, my sister got really sick, basically overnight. And we didn't know what the heck was wrong with her. As we think back and compare notes between my brother-in-law and my niece and myself, we realized it wasn't overnight and that we were each recognizing symptoms, but didn't realize it was as bad as it was, or that certain things were going on, what I was seeing, what my niece was seeing, what my brother-in-law was seeing. It was all different. But like I said, at the end, when we all compared notes, my sister probably was symptomatic for about 6 months before we put it all together. Anyway, I'm just rounding out the corners here. My bottom's a bit darker, and I'm rounding out the corners, and my whole halo now is dark. Okay? Darker. All right, I'm going to wash my brush. So, we thought my sister had a stroke. She was actually 65 at the time. It was possible, but everything, people in their 20s, 30s have strokes. And it turns out my sister had a very rare, rapidly advancing, fatal, untreatable brain disease. And it's called CJD. You can look it up. It's a horrible, horrible, ugly, deadly disease that there is no cure or treatment for, even now, and it's been almost 8 years. Or actually, it was just 8 years. And it was devastating. I felt like I got hit by a bus. And art literally saved me, helped me cope, helped me grieve, helped me get back on the right path. So I have my yellow and my orange next to each other. I am actually going to put my brush right in the middle of them. I'm going to take some yellow and some orange. And if you see, I'm swinging my brush back and forth. So the yellow stays on the yellow and the orange stays on the orange. And then I have 2 colors in my brush, yellow and orange. And I'm going to start painting in my pumpkins. I'm using the same brush. It's fine. So when my sister died, it was a very, very difficult time. Each time I go to my palette, I'm picking up more orange and more yellow. And I'm kind of painting in these C strokes. I'm getting the yellow and the orange onto my surface at the same time. You want your brush to move smoothly. I am going over it because I want decent coverage. Okay. You guys can look it up. CJD can be contracted. Not so much anymore in this country because we're an advanced country, but you used to be able to get it through certain ways. I'm not going to start alarming people. I'm not a medical doctor. Then there are ways that you don't even know, like they call it sporadic, because they haven't identified those particular reasons yet. And then it can be genetic. And they have identified 21 different strains or, I don't know, genes for it to be genetic. And in my family, we have, it is called CJD. It's very difficult to spell. It's Crooksfeld Jakob, but it's a CJD disease. They've actually identified at this point 21 genetic variants. So lots of progress is being made. Again, I'm going back to my orange and my yellow, and I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do my larger pumpkin. So when art was such a huge part of my grief, and my grief process, I decided to start sharing it with others. And that's what led me to start a Facebook page. That's what led me to start expanding on my art. I started going to conferences and art clinics and taking lessons and sucking up as much art as I could. And my goal since then has been to help others get a little joy from art. Sometimes people are intimidated. I'm just going around my flower now. I could paint right over it, but I'm not gonna. Sometimes people are intimidated. They don't think they can paint. They don't think they can paint well. Their friend paints better. Whatever it is, it's not about the finished product. I host in-person paint nights, and it is so nice to see groups getting together and they all say, "Oh my God, we haven't seen each other in so long." Or, "Oh my God, this is so fun. We should do this again." And I love it. And that is what it is all about. It is about the feeling you get when you take a little time for yourself. If I can provide a little bit of joy to you too. Oh, I picked up some blue. I'm not even gonna worry about that. I don't even care. If I can provide a little bit of joy to you by watching and you have no desire to get supplies and paint with me, that's okay too. There are so many ways that you can be entertained and take a little time for yourself through art and creativity. And maybe at some point, one of those ways will excite you. Okay, now that my blue is dry and my orange is somewhat dry, I'm going to load my brush with white. Again, I put a little bit of pressure on it, and I'm going to paint in my moon. Now, there are people that will say, "Your moon is white. Why are you painting it?" Because I want to. If you don't want to, don't paint it. If you don't have time, don't paint it. It is totally up to you, your art, your way. I want to paint it. I want to know that every surface of my canvas, if that's the kind of painting I'm doing, is covered. It's not so important because I'm painting with white that I go around all these shapes and elements, but I try and be neat. I pretty much painted over my stem of my pumpkin, but I can see it through one coat of white paint, so I'm not going to fret about that. Again, I'm outlining the shape, and then I'm coming in here and smoothing out my paint. You can't really tell, but depending on the elements, now I'm painting this moon, so I'm doing my brush strokes in a curved manner. When I did the background, I went vertical and horizontal. When I did the pumpkin, I did parentheses, one way, then the other way. You want to have your brush strokes follow the shape of whatever it is that you're painting at the time. Painting is like pizza. You don't want to judge it until it's done. You don't want to judge it until it's fully cooked and ready to go. So I equate pizza. My canvas is the dough. Our background is the sauce. Base coating all our elements in, like our moon, and I'm going to do the owl now and the pumpkins, is the cheese. Then when everything is painted in and base coated and color blocked and you have everything basically where you want it, then we add the details, and the details are the toppings. And the toppings are what really make your pizza or your painting unique and pretty and beautiful. So we don't judge our painting until it's time. We don't judge our painting until the pizza is cooked. All right, I have switched now to this medium brown brush. And let me see, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to start coming in here with little strokes. You can't see them because they're white, but I'm going to start darkening them up and you'll be able to see them. Little tiny strokes. I'm using the tip of the brush, and I'm going to base coat in my entire owl with little white strokes, maybe 2 inches. And I'm just layering them and layering them. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown on my same brush, a little bit, tiny bit. And I'm going to start putting them in here and layering them in. A little bit. I did not clean my brush, and I'm just picking up a little bit of brown, and I'm starting to layer in these little strokes. Now you can really see how little my strokes are because it's the brown and they're tiny. And I'm just wiggling lightly with my hand like that. Okay. Then I'm going to put in some darker here. And we're just going to start layering in our owl. It's fine. You want to go outside the line of your owl a little bit. I pulled out some of those strokes there. I'm picking up more brown, and I'm just building colors now on my owl. Got his tail. Okay. I'm actually going to put a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of black on my brush and brown, tiny bit of black, and then start filling in here with a little bit darker. And I'm just flicking in these strokes. I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to get a little white and a little yellow, and I want to make a pale yellow over here. I don't know if you guys can see. I'm making a little bit of a pale yellow, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in a little highlight. And work my way down. I can even make it a little bit brighter. I'm picking up the slightest amount of paint. Wipe my brush off again. Go back to my white and pull in some fresh white here over the yellow and the brown. Want this under breast here to be a little lighter. I move around on my painting. I could get my dryer, but I move around on my painting so while one section is drying, I can paint another section. And while that section is drying, I can paint another section. Now we're going to move on to our owl's head. And this is going to be a little darker, and I'm just picking up. I still have not washed my brush. I'm going straight into the brown, and I'm pulling out the brown strokes. It's going to make like a collar around his head. All right. And I'm pulling out to the sides and out down to the collar. Okay. Wipe off my brush. Go back into the white. And now I'm pulling out some white. If you go over your eyes, it's okay. The important part is that these strokes radiate outward, up to the crown of his head and out from the eyes. A little bit of brown, and I'm going to put in the ears. And again, all these strokes are flicking out. White, brown, and flick out. Now this takes a little bit of practice. You need a little bit of a soft touch. Don't get discouraged the first time, okay? Because, it takes practice. Like anything else, it takes practice. And now I picked up a little bit of fresh white, and I'm pulling out again over the crown and into the ears. Okay? And now my owl does not look like much at the moment, but we need to let that dry. Get a little bit of black up there. Okay? We need to let our owl dry now for a little bit, and I'm going to wash my brush. Okay. Now we're going to start adding in some of the details. So I'm going to load my brush with white, and this time when I'm using the medium round, I'm rolling it on the side of my white paint. And I'm going to start coming in here and highlighting some of the segments of my pumpkin. Another reason we want to wait for our painting to be dry is because I'm using my pinky as an anchor, and it's easier to use your pinky as an anchor when your painting is dry. I'm a messy painter as it is, but if I can use my pinky to anchor my hand down and not be dragging it through the wet paint, better. And I'm just pulling down from the top and pulling up from the bottom. I'm going to get a little bit of my blue on my white brush, and I'm going to start adding in some of this blue to my pumpkin. Just a tiny bit. My brush was already white. Now I have to be careful with my pinky because now my stripes are wet, but I'm just adding in some details. And now we're going to see our painting start to come together. How long? I'm going to use the back of my brush handle. I'm going to get yellow, and I'm going to draw in these circles for my owl's eyes. And then again, we're not going to judge. We're going to let it dry. Okay. And I'm going to come down here to my flower. I'm going to get some white. I'm going to get some purple. And again, I'm going to add the purple and the white to my brush. Purple, white, a little bit of pressure to my brush. I'm rocking it both ways. I'm making this little runway, and I have purple and white on my brush. And now to come in here, I'm going to start doing my flower petals. Start out with my brush on the flat, pull up, and curve. Purple, white, start with my brush on the flat, push, and curve. Brush on the flat, push, and curve. And we're going to do this all the way around. When we get to these bottom strokes, they're going to be naturally shaded at the bottom of our art. because we already painted the base coat. So, and even though, let me show you guys something. Even though I traced in the flower to begin with, I didn't end up doing it on the trace because my brush didn't allow for that. So I just added an extra petal. That's all. I wasn't married to the trace. The trace was just there for a guide and placement. I just added an extra petal, and there's my flower. And I'm going to wash my brush. Dealsforcreatives.com. You go and check that out. There are craft supplies and all kinds of stuff. Ribbon, glitter, brushes, surfaces at like 50% off for creatives. And for anybody, really. It's a website. You just go to it. But it's crafting supplies from people like me, small businesses who have gotten like way too much, and then they're going to destash. It's an awesome site for destashing. Like stuff is like 50% off, maybe even more. There's mystery boxes, there's surfaces, there's lettering books, you name it. Okay, back to business. I'm going to get some brown, and I'm going to paint in the center of my flower. While I have the brown, I'm going to do the stump. The stump. I keep calling it a stump. What is it? The pumpkin. It's not a handle. Stem. While I have the brown on my brush, I'm going to do the stem. So I have art kits. There are digital downloads where you get the supply list and the tracer, and then you get your own supplies and the video, the step-by-step video. Or you can get complete kits. In my complete kits, you get a pre-traced canvas, all the paint you need, the brushes you need, and a link to the video. So either way, digital download or complete kits, ready to go, all the paint and the brushes and the video. Okay, I'm going to get my chip brush now. Like I said, you don't need to use a chip brush. I'm going to get my chip brush, and I'm going to put it in the black and then pounce it off, and then pick up some white and pounce it off. And I'm going to come in here around my owl. I'm just giving a little texture to my moon. And you can make this as dark or as light as you want. Okay? And these brushes I rarely wash. I'm just going to take this now and wipe it on my grungy rag and leave it. There's nothing that this is about the basis of what I use this brush for. The rattier it is, the better. Okay? So put that aside. Now, you guys can see the magic start to happen. I'm going to dip the handle of my brush in the black. And I'm going to do the center of the eyes. Doesn't that just go, right? Center of the eyes. I'm going to wet my liner brush. I'm going to roll it in the yellow paint. And now I'm going to do a little triangle for his beak. Okay, it's more like a diamond. I apologize. Okay, pick up a little bit of brown while I have my brush out here and give a little bit of shade to one side of the beak. Okay. Now I'm going to roll my brush in the black. I'm not even going to wash it. I'm just going to roll it in the black. I'm going to come in, and where I did the white and the blue, I'm just going to add a little bit of black. This is such a light touch here. None of them are full lines. Add a little bit of to my stem. Okay. Total light touch. Okay. Then I'm going to use the back of my brush again with my yellow. And I'm going to add some highlight to the center of my flower. Wipe it off, go into my white, and add some white as well. I'm using the back of my brush for the center of my flower. I'm going to start adding some stars up here in the sky. As many or as few as you want. Okay. And then, last but not least, well, actually not last yet. I have to add some leaves. My medium brush. Here's my medium brush. Here's my medium brush. Okay. Again, we're going to do a double load. Dark green, light green, runway. The bottom green is dry. Dark green, light green, runway. I'm getting paint. Thanks, Kimberly. Up into my bristles. I have 2 colors on there. I'm going to come down to my flower. And I'm going to add in a few leaves. I put my brush on the flat. I pull and twist. Brush on the flat. Pull and twist. Every time I pick up 2 colors on my brush. Add another leaf there. And then I'm just going to add a few leaves down here, or up here rather, to the top of my pumpkin. Okay. And I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to go back to my liner brush. I'm going to add some curly cues. I'm going to dip the tip of my brush in some water. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to thin up this paint a little bit. You want it a little bit thinner than when it comes out of the bottle. But you don't want it so thin that if you go like this, it just totally drips off your brush. So you want it thinner, but you want it to stay in the brush. And I'm twirling. If you look up here at my thumb and my finger, I'm twirling. So look at my thumb and my finger, not my brush, and I'm twirling. And now I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to do a few of these curly cues, like our pumpkin vine. Just kept, growing, and from our pumpkin patch. And you could do as many of these or as few of these as you like. I tend to be a minimalist. However, there are certain things, if I'm painting a tree or a tree, I don't have a tree, but if I'm painting a tree or these curly cues, before you know it, my painting has been overtaken by tree branches and curly cues, and I don't know when to stop. It's just so satisfying. Let me turn you guys around. There we have it. What do you guys think?